Working now. Hey guys, sorry. We were dealing with our Wi-Fi last week and I'm not sure it was. But we will figure this out. Okay, I look like I'm in darkness. There we go. All right, Benny, I now see what email you're using or what Instagram you're using. Okay, Benny. There you are. Can you see me now?
All right.
Hi.
Can you see me?
I can, and I'm good enough. The Wi-Fi is going a little crazy over here.
Well, can you believe this is the first Instagram live I'm doing? So I'm really excited, and I can't believe that the technology actually also followed. Good to see you.
It's both exciting that it followed, but it's also ridiculous that there's even a question that it followed.
Well, true.
Benny, how do I pronounce your last name properly?
Well, I could say it the German harsh way. That would
Say
be
it.
Frowein. But I
Frowein.
think, yeah, exactly. But I think if you say Frowein or Frowein or whatever,
I think we who do can do this. I think we can say Frowein easily. Where are you? Are you still in Paris?
Well, I just landed last night in London. So you see here a beautiful Schumacher wallpaper, Madame Pompadour. I'm sitting in the office where I belong at this time of the day. And I'm really excited. Yeah, London.
Very, very cool. So let's introduce you to anybody who's foolish enough not to know who you are. How long have you been working? I mean, I feel like you've been at Schumacher now, with Schumacher now for how long?
So I started end of 2015, actually in New York. And I used to be the president of the brand and then relocated in 2020 to Europe as the CEO for Europe.
And now you're opening Schumachers where hitherto there had been none.
Exactly. I open Schumachers wherever I can. We started last year in London, which was super successful and also super exciting. And even more exciting actually was opening Schumacher now in Paris, because a lot of people don't know this is where it all started 133 years ago. Our founder, Frederick Schumacher, was actually a Parisian.
Really? Tell me more.
Well, I'm glad you asked, because it's actually a fascinating story. So you need to go back in time and think 1889, and that was the year that the Eiffel Tower was inaugurated for the Expo in Paris. As a little fun fact that I learned from Dara, it was also the year that the pizza margherita was called after Queen Margherita of Italy. So no one here on this
That's
call
a big year.
will forget 1889 again.
Yeah, that's a big deal. The year, I mean,
huge deal. So that year, Frederick Schumacher decides to leave Paris and to move to New York. And I don't know whether you watched Gilded Age on Netflix or maybe anyone on the Instagram live right now. I mean, that was the time where the United States and especially the East Coast boomed, the steel boom, and the bridges were built at that time in New York, and Chicago was, coming up. And so he decided to move to New York and to sell the most exquisite European textiles to American high society. And he really made the American story, within 5 or 10 years, he was in the White House. Henry Ford, had him all over in his house. The Vanderbilts, the first and the second Wald of Astoria, did everything in Schumacher. So he was a super, super success. And with that, it became an American brand.
So he was a broker of fabrics first.
Well, I would call it more a merchant, I think, because he would go every year back by boat, obviously, to Europe and travel 3 months around Europe, all over, to buy beautiful textiles. And then he would ship them to the US and would sell them.
And it was through his eye that Schumacher looked like Schumacher looked.
Exactly. And it's quite interesting because he didn't have children, and his nephew took over, and his nephew still was very French. So in the First World War, the nephew still fought on the French side, for example.
Yeah.
And only then, after that period, Schumacher kind of became an American brand.
Yeah. And how did you end up here? What is your background? What is your schooling? How does a young man like you become CEO of Schumacher, opening up businesses all over the world?
Well, I think there's a big portion of luck. I'm not going to lie. I started my career. So I'm originally German, grew up in Germany, studied in Spain.
Where?
I grew up in Hamburg in the north. Actually, by the way, most beautiful city in Germany. Everyone who's ever going to go to Germany, go and visit. Then I studied in Spain in Madrid, and started in strategy consulting with the Boston Consulting Group, which is with McKinsey, one of the 2 biggest consulting groups worldwide. And that brought me actually all around the world. I worked.
Did you go there right after college?
Yeah.
And
I went there right.
Were you specializing in a particular sector on their behalf?
Well, at the beginning, it's really like, it's more like you look everywhere and see what you like. And that brought me, to China and to South Africa for a year and to Brazil for a year and all over Europe. And then I decided, kind of with the company, that I would focus on luxury automotive and marketing and sales. And I did a lot of turnaround and transformation projects in company. And that's then how I got into Schumacher, because I left BCG because I spent 2 to 3 nights a week on the plane. Like, I'm done here. Then the opportunity of Schumacher came along, which, the new generation had taken over, and they wanted to change a lot of things and wanted to transform the company and bring it to the 21st century. That's also when Dara started and so on.
So who was, when you say the new generation had wanted to reinvigorate, who are we talking about?
Steven Puchel, who is our president for rugs. He is around my age, and I deeply, deeply admire him for, I think if you own a company, a family-owned company for 133 years, it's much easier not to change anything, out of fear to do something wrong, rather than saying, okay, so let's go and let's bring this to the 21st century. I'm glad he kind of, led the path there.
Yeah, as am I. Thank you. So you've been now in the family fold for almost 8 years. How did you find it? God, I have so many questions. Wait, hold on. Let's go back to, you've just left Boston Consulting Group. You are in the luxury sector. I'm fascinated by consulting groups anyway, because I just find them fascinating. I'm specifically fascinated by how, like, when a company has no money and they're completely going bust, they frequently somehow spend gazillions of dollars to get consultants in. And then the consultants end up running the joint. How did you meet the Schumacher Group?
Well, it's interesting. I actually met the Schumacher Group through an old colleague of mine, Timur, who is the group CEO. He had joined Schumacher in 2015, and he heard Benni has quit BCG, and we never really worked together, but we started on the same day, and you know of each other and so on. So he reached out and he said, Benni, I heard you left BCG. I just joined the company. We need a really good team to transform the company and bring it to the 21st century. Do you want to join? Do you want to come and we have a conversation and so on? And well, fast forward, I came over. I consulted them also. I fell in love with the company. And out of that, I got an offer, and I thought, this is pretty much a once in a lifetime opportunity, to become a piece of a huge puzzle of a 133-year-old, brand that has so much legacy in the US. I was just amazed, and I always loved interior design.
So yeah, what is your design background? Were you raised going to museums, or where did it spark for you?
Well, it really sparked at home, actually. So Germany is a do-it-yourself market. Like, we don't know interior designers. Either you cannot afford them, or you feel you have to show your friends and your family that you have taste yourself. So my mother was constantly doing things. And I remember very well with, I don't know how old I was, 6 or 7, where we cut pelmets actually round, to match the round windows outside. So I can totally remember that. And it was a big day. So I have 3 siblings, and always when you were turning 10, you were allowed to make choice of your wall paint and your curtains in your room. That was a big day. And that's when I first decorated.
And what did you choose?
I really shouldn't say that. I also wrote it in the interview. So I chose light blue color for the walls, which my mother warned me that this would feel very cold. I didn't care, obviously. And then we went to IKEA because I kind of, bit her ears off to say, I want new curtains, I want new curtains. So she brought me to IKEA, and there I found this beautiful rainbow colored fabric that we bought. Pretty eccentric and pretty ugly too. And she brought it to the seamstress, and I got those curtains. So I was super excited.
Yeah, not necessarily an auspicious beginning.
Let me say that my taste has changed a little bit. It's more sophisticated these days, I hope.
So once you jump in feet first into the world of Schumacher, how do you personally, Benny, how do you reconcile all you know about business, but then take on this DNA, their DNA, which is about beauty and luxury? What was that? I mean, that's got to be kind of challenging. It's you entered a subculture that was completely, like that whole world exists, and boom, suddenly you're in it.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. I mean, I learned in my consulting years to very quickly understand the business. You get hired as a consultant, and within, I don't know, a week, executives ask you, what's your opinion on that? So you really quickly, and how you do this is you speak to people. So so within my first 2 weeks, I met every single employee of the company across the United States. So I did a huge tour from New York to Minneapolis to LA to Houston, Dallas, Denver, you name them all, Miami, and so on. I learned a lot from the staff. And I also, the good thing is, when you have a nice title on a business card and Schumacher on the business card, people meet you. So I met a lot of interior designers, took them out for lunch and for dinner, and asked them about their perspective, what's important, and so on. I learned a tremendous amount of things in the first month in order to be able to indulge in the industry. From a business perspective, I have to say the things are pretty clear, what we needed to do very quickly. You start with the team, you look at digitization. Dara was already there as our creative director. With her, we obviously decided to, do monthly collections, and we needed to refresh our product, all of that, So business-wise, it very quickly you see, also the team tells you. But what was really interesting and helpful was talking to designers and leaders in the company.
For many of us on our side of this equation, in the design side, sorry, I'm still on my first coffee. So obviously Schumacher wasn't an ill company. It was a storied, established company when you came in, beloved by many of us in our, if you had to ask me when I was 14, what were the 5 fabric houses that you had to go to. Even at that age, I would have had Schumacher on that list of 5. So it's not like you were coming into some, crap place. You were coming into a great established place. What did you see as your call to arms? I mean, a lot of us also have good businesses, but clearly you're like, okay, I want to go from being a good business to being an amazing business. So what does that mean when you start? What do you immediately have to cut things out? Do you like, who sits down, like you sat down with Dara and said, how do you envision this company? We need to come out with new things this frequently. Like, I'm fascinated. What are some of the things that were shaping your path going into it?
So first of all, I really understood the incredible legacy and history of Schumacher really only after I joined, because, you start speaking to people and you understand that, your story that you shared with being 14 and knowing Schumacher. I mean, it's remarkable how many people have shared their story with me of how their grandmother had Schumacher, or how or how they're furnishing, their daughter's place right now. Or so everyone has somehow a story with Schumacher, which I found incredible. So you have this, very valuable thing in your hand, and you need to see now how you bring it to the next level. Quite frankly, sales weren't where they should be at that point of time. And profitability wasn't there, which was supposed to be. So the first thing is you analyze your sales and you speak to clients. And a lot of clients said, well, I love Schumacher. And I said, well, what hinders you from buying more? I would love to understand that. And then very quickly you understand that, I don't know, you wouldn't get the support from the sales team, or that they wish we had, other colors, or that, that they go for, I'm making this up now, for shears to other brands, and we realize, oh, we don't really have shears in our portfolio, or that they say, well, we never hear from Schumacher. So very quickly you hear things, and you realize, okay, so if we just do 3 out of the 8 things you hear, we already gonna make a difference. So that's one. On the other hand, obviously Dara had a very strong opinion on where we would have to bring Schumacher visually and product-wise. And we understood that, stopping sample books, for example, that are hugely expensive, only by stopping this, we could double our collection. So we, that it's, I think in that time, we really tried a lot of different things, and you never really know what really worked. But if you really need to change things, you've got to change things as quickly as you can, and you hope that 75% of those are the right decisions. And otherwise, you just adjust again.
I'm hearing that. That's just so, what's nice about hearing that is that you don't purport to know everything when you're going in. I like hearing that somebody with this expertise of helping companies go knowing that you don't know everything.
Alexa, you don't know anything when you start. I think you can have much experience. I mean, maybe I say something different in 20 years, but I would still say, you come into a company and you don't know anything, because every single challenge is different. I think really, also when people ask me, tell me the 3 things you guys did, it's so hard to say. You make decisions, and you hope that some of them stick. And if you see you made a wrong decision, then you need to be smart enough to adjust again. But I have a hard time saying, oh, 3 things.
Yeah, with the intellectual property that is Schumacher, it also must be terrifying to make a change, because you've got this very valuable thing, and you're now its shepherd, and
you don't want to be the one screwing it up. Certainly not.
When was Dara hired in the timeline?
So Dara was a little earlier. She was hired in 2014.
2014. So I have to assume that all of this movement is very closely tied to 2008 and the economic crisis. I can certainly remember as a decorator, all of a sudden not being able to find certain things that I'd been able to find before, distinguishing patterns or colors that made my work or my friend's work interesting and different and not vivid, but you know, special. A lot of those things were going away. You know, we couldn't find wallpaper. We couldn't find esoteric colors to make a room, you know, special, you know, as for our clients, to make it special to them. A lot of things became very safe.
Yeah.
A lot of the fabric houses went away and then they came back, recombined, you know, people were buying assets, switching, disappearing. I mean, the D&D was like going into a place you could have memorized the D&D building, and then all of a sudden you were going and you had no idea where you were going. So I assume you guys took that opportunity and said, okay, the world has gone upside down right now. We're going to take advantage of the opportunity.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I wasn't part of Schumacher at that time, but what I do know is that the crisis hit everyone a lot. And also when you run a company, you know, the crisis hits you, and also things you didn't see before apparently, you know, rise up to the surface. And it was a very hard time. And I think with that came the whole world becoming more digitalized. With that, you know, a lot of very difficult decisions had to be made. You know, we don't speak about, you know, it's so interesting in this industry, we are all entrepreneurs. You own your company, you know, other interior designers, almost every interior designer own their company. So we're all business people, and we never really talk about the business side of business because it's not really glamorous. But we also needed to make some really tough decisions to cut costs, to, you know, a shift budget from where we thought, okay, it made sense before. Now we need to cut here because we need to actually spend it on product. Because we needed to come back, you know, we needed to come back to a Schumacher that people had fallen in love with before. And that was, you know, honing in on design, honing in on designing our own fabrics, becoming a design house again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, switching a large portion of our sales team with people that actually wanted to be part of Schumacher, that wanted to help interior designers, that thought entrepreneurial, that could understand an interior designer. So a lot of these changes had to be made. And it's very interesting because with COVID, I think we faced a lot of things again in terms of crisis where we needed to, all of us, to adjust. You know, luckily our industry has been that at the end one of the winners of this pandemic. But I think all need
to winning, you know, in such,
maybe that's the wrong word.
Yeah.
Home has become so important through the pandemic. I think this is the right terminology to use.
When you are changing around, you know, for people like me and on my side of it, you know, the Schumachers of the world are the monoliths. You don't even imagine all the stuff that's going on behind the scenes. So how, when you go about changing the, you know, course correcting big companies like that, how, you know, like, is there a point of no return? Do you have to do some incremental changes, or do you have to be ruthless and just hope you haven't made a terrible mistake? Like, how do you do that with a company on that scale?
So it's interesting because I don't know whether you always understand whether your decisions you make are really that big or actually, you know, like small. I think we made decisions that we thought were small and they, you know, became a big success and the other way around. I think number one is it's all about the team. I mean, I am one of back then 5 executives, and we all met almost every day and discussed things and didn't leave anyone in their area making decisions alone, just to feel good about it and have a sounding board and feel like, okay, if 5 people in the room think this is not a terrible mistake, let's try it. Mm-hmm. And then I think, you know, you start with a team. You need a core team that you know is on board and you know wants to go the path with you and wants, you know, to be a wants to write history in their career also, you know, like being really ambitious. I think if you have both of that, like a strong core of colleagues and then a team that helps you, then I think you very quickly, intuition and listening will guide you the way. And then of course you make wrong decisions, like all the time, and then you just course correct.
So another part of this story that I find really interesting is that obviously you did not come from this part of the design world. You came from luxury for sure. And obviously you came from a place where you're highly educated about fixing companies. And you see granular things that people in the design world aren't necessarily trained to be even looking at. So you're coming in from a consulting group. You said the guy that you were in the class of, he was the CEO at the time, right? So he was coming in from consulting. And then you had Dara coming in from publishing. I definitely remember at the time when Dara came in, I was like, what? Not thinking what, that's stupid, just like, what? I'm so fascinated. She was reinventing her, you know, the idea that somebody from publishing was going into, I mean, obviously Dara's famous for her great taste and her, you know, obviously she gets it from the minute her eyes open in the morning to when she goes to them at night. But it was so fascinating that it wasn't at all expected. So already you're saying you're meeting 5 of you in a room every day to fix this. 3 of you aren't even from this business in the typical way. Like, I find that fascinating. It's so ballsy. It kind of like makes me want to sweat with nerves.
But trust me, like the first 6 months were a total blur, you know. But I thought, okay, I'm doing this. I thought for myself it was a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to be humble, and I'm going to learn, and I'm going to speak to a lot of interior designers. And I had people, or interior designers asking me, well, you must have inherited this role. You have nothing to do with the industry, and you're too young. I had people that called. That,
yeah.
but I think in that moment, I thought, okay, I'm taking this person out for dinner, so I think it's a joke. So I answered, well, if I had ties to the family, I would sit on my boat and not have lunch with you.
Yeah.
But, so I had, but I think what I did was that I really spoke to a lot of interior designers and tried to understand what they're doing. And at the same time, I really also felt I found my home. And and over the last 6 years, today I cannot imagine working in a different industry anymore. Besides working for a different company in our field. I think I really found my home personally. I love decorating. I've been decorating on the side for myself for numerous different apartments. Moving from continents and cities helps.
And places to decorate.
Sorry? Yeah, exactly.
4 places to decorate.
Exactly. So, and I think I have some, yes, I come from business, but I do think in my core, I've grown up with interior design. I think I'm a very aesthetic person. So I just really found, stupid as it might sound, but I really just found my core. And that's lovely on a personal note.
When you joined the company, did you say to yourself, I'm going to spend like a minimum of 5 years here, 10 years here, 15, like what, when you take on a job, like what I, in the past 20 years that we've seen so much tumult, whether it was maybe not even 20, but first the financial crisis and then in the run up to COVID and everything else in between, a lot of other industries have been tinkered with by business people. So say private equity or, they go into many of our ancillary industries and they're like, okay, we're the businessmen, we're going to fix this. And then they go in and what they're really doing is just like spit polishing, making it shiny, and then selling it. You now clearly have made this commitment and you are here in this role. When you approached it, did you know it was this was a place you were going to stay?
Well, I had done my due diligence, no? So if I had wanted to do, and this is a personal note, to become really rich, I would have stayed in consulting, I would have gone into private equity. So I really wanted to follow my heart. And the setup to me sounded perfect, a legacy company within, with the, Dara, obviously I had done my research and I've obviously had interacted with her by then, who is not only famous for her taste, but also a wonderful person and incredibly capable. I knew Timur, our group CEO, and I know Stephen, the owner, who I also had spent a fair amount of time with just to understand what his vision was for the company and to understand also the engagement of the family in the company and so on. So that I would understand, okay, this is a setup where Benny, can thrive if I put 150% of my heart into this. So that due diligence was done. And I hope, I had been 10 years before, it's my second employer, so I had an interest of staying. But then at the same time, you never know, no? So I never made real 5-year, you hear a lot from people, and then you make a 5-year plan and a 10-year plan. It would freak me out. I put so much pressure on myself already. I rather say, look, it's going to be amazing until it's not, and then I reconsider. And now we are 7 or 8 years later. It's still amazing.
Yeah.
We opened Paris last week. Actually, Dara was with me all week in Paris. And I cannot tell you how much fantastic feedback we received from French interior designers about our brand and our product. And that honestly gave me at least another 5 years of tailwind.
Yeah. And it's also
Where?
fear of American companies impressing the French. I love it. Now, the reason why I asked you that question is because those interventions that you see in other companies sometimes end up just being transactional. Yeah. And these same companies going through the same revolutions. Somebody comes in, does whatever, sells them to somebody else, and that somebody else tries to do whatever and sells it. I mean, it's like this endless hot potato game. And it's very exciting to see what can be accomplished when a team gets together and stays together.
Totally. And I think it's important you say that, because when my friends ask me, for why we became successful or as successful as we are today, one of the things I really do say is because we are all in it with our heart. And you feel that if you go in our showroom, the team is in it with their heart. And I think, and I didn't mention that before, we as a team put a lot of effort into driving cultural change and having everyone in our entity, in our company, feel like an entrepreneur, and them understanding their part of contribution to the bigger picture and to Schumacher. And that makes a big difference because everyone is contributing. And we are all, Schumacher is not a name, it's the sum of all individual faces, hands, hearts, and brains. And I think that really made us special. So
we all of us as business people know that those sentences make perfect sense. How do we, what would you counsel an entrepreneur to do to keep that at the forefront? Like, how do you keep yourself on point? We all know that we should be giving heart and thought and like what discipline should we be employing to keep?
So, to be honest, so we work hard, then we get recognition, and that's the moment where we start feeling accomplished, maybe also very easily, because we're all human, like a tiny bit vain. And I think catching you there and pulling you back, so that you don't feel like, I know it all, we got it all. But constantly, whenever you feel this like tiny sign of you getting there or me getting there to this point, I pull myself back and I'm saying, okay, so what are the next steps now? So I think that's one point. The other point is staying really closely in touch with the whole organization. So having individual meetings, little group meetings where you speak with everyone, where you listen, what's wrong, what do we need to do, what's wrong on the basis, but also me explaining to everyone what the bigger picture is, so that everyone from the sample room to, you know, the managing directors in the different countries understands and is part of it. So I think this, like, those two things, I think are very, very important.
So fight complacency and
Yeah.
stay constantly in touch with everybody.
Complacency, that's the name that I was looking for. You know, I'm still, sometimes that, you know, yes, that's the word.
It's good that it doesn't come to your mind.
Well, I always, you know, come back to the point that I say I'm German, you know, my vocabulary, but I don't know.
So then, what happens when you get what you hope for? I mean, you guys got, you started, you said, we want to do this, this, and this. Obviously, you've visibly, it appears to be accomplished. Now what?
So now we started, you know, expanding to Europe, which is a fantastic endeavor. And, you know, Europe, we are hardly known in Europe. In the UK we are, and then you come to continental Europe, and Schumacher is a fairly new brand. So that's very interesting, and that's certainly new. And I've, you know, before never founded new companies. So, you know, we founded a new company, needed to get a bank account and do all of that everyone who was listening and you and so all have done too when you form your company. Then in the US, you know, we, you know, are having big plans to become even better with Frederick, our magazine, and with our content that Dara is driving. We are working on fabulous collaborations, but also on our own collections, because Schumacher itself is a design house. And then we have a couple of things up our sleeve that I can't talk about yet. But I think one of the things we just recently did, you know, we joined forces with Backdrop, the paint company based out of LA, which I think is kind of the cool LA response to other paint companies. We feel very excited about that because it's very complementary to wallpaper and to paint and to fabrics, and, you know, broadens the world that we offer to customers, because we really do have a perspective on how to live, and I think this perspective we are filling more and more in.
So with the paint company, with the paint range, I do actually, sometimes you'll have one of those great fabrics that you're using all over a room, and it's got especially blues, and it'll be a very particular blue, and then you cannot find the corresponding paint that is just perfect. So the idea that Schumacher will have that fabric that is iconic and then the perfect blue paint that goes with it is sort of amazing.
We're working towards this, yes.
I mean, it's definitely solution driven. Yeah, so I've already, you can't tell me everything that's going on. So you're living in London now?
Yes, so I live in London now.
So when did you move there?
I live in Chelsea, close to the design center. And, you know, next to working and opening stores and so on, I just renovated my own apartment because, as I said before, I kind of found my own home and in here. So I'm, you know, also decorating that, which is super exciting. It also freaks me out all the time because, again, you're scared of making mistakes and then you have to course correct and so on. So you know that better than I do, but I'm making those experiences firsthand.
But you lived in New York for the last several years, right?
Yeah, I lived 6 years in New York and then moved to London.
You like change, but you, no, I shouldn't say that, because here you are, you've dug deep into Schumacher, which is great. You're both stable, but you're keeping it interesting.
I don't know. I get bored quickly, you know, like I get bored because I'm very solution driven and I love a challenge. You know, so I felt also in the US, for me, I felt, okay, I think I've done my part there. So how can I now help the brand in a different way? So this is why I moved to Europe. And here I'm far not done yet.
I wonder how I hope that boredom is as useful to growth as I'd like it to be. Because I do like the idea of boredom being a driver. You know, like if things aren't shaken up enough, and if you know, it's not a bad, it's not bad.
No, it's not bad. No, you're right. It's not bad. I would call it a blessing and a curse equally, no? So, you know, you're constantly in yourself. There's a movement constantly in yourself, and that's not comfortable. So you need to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. I think that's the curse and blessing. But it drives me, and it makes me do a lot of different things. And I think I live 3, 4, 5 lives a day, which I feel very privileged to have that. So I can really not complain.
Yeah, no. I certainly don't see it as a complaint. I read once about kids that if you overschedule them, as Americans frequently are accused of doing, if you overschedule your child so that they never have a moment to themselves, they don't learn the importance of boredom. You know, if you spoon feed every experience, then, you know, like it's an essential experience both in life and for you in work to be bored so that you can realize, okay, things need to happen. Or especially if you're a purveyor of goods, you always want somebody to come into that business and be excited. And, you know, so no, I think it's a valuable thing. I don't think it's a
No, it's funny you say that, because my mother also always says that creativity comes from boredom. And she actually tells me, Benny, try to be bored, you know,
yeah.
on the weekend, or try to be also, you know, like clean your desk, don't have anything to do at work, you know, things will come to you. And it's actually true. So I just forget it from time to time.
Yeah, well, because you're interested. Okay, well, you can't tell me everything that's going on. Can you tell me about more, are you going to be really going after opening more places across continental Europe?
I think we are monitoring. So look, Paris has been our first roadside shop, if you will. You know, in the US, we are always in a design center. Paris does not have a design center. So you need to pick your spot. We went into to the left bank to Saint-Germain-des-Prés on Rue Jacob, right there where everyone else is, with a great address. And it's been so interesting. You suddenly have home enthusiasts coming in, and you suddenly have, you know, just interested people coming in, and you have interior designers coming in. So I think I like to be a little longer and see a little more how this is going. So I worked, actually today's Monday. Yesterday I worked in the store. On Saturday I worked in the store, just to understand and experience it. I think, to answer your question, I think we're going to monitor a little bit, but the big goal is to be more represented in Europe, because we think we can best represent our brand, we can best bring the legacy across ourselves, and we can be the best consultant for interior designers if we do it ourselves, because we know our product best and we know best how to install it and how to apply it.
This is an impossible question to ask, and I don't have time for you to
challenge me.
But how do you, the very notion of saying this is a legacy brand about a design brand from America to Paris is a fascinating riddle. You know, how do you, you know, to some French, they'd be like, that's an oxymoron. There's no such thing as a legacy brand that's American. What are, like, there have to be different thorny issues in doing that in continental Europe. How are you making it clear?
I love this question, because I have a lot of answers to that, because obviously we've been discussing that a lot internally, you know, like, will people like us, will people, and so on. So I think number one, our portfolio with 13,000 references between wallpaper, fabrics, and trims is so diverse, and we've done collaborations with Europeans. I mean, we've done with Paul Poiret in the 20s, with Karl Lagerfeld in the 90s, with Elsa Schiaparelli in the 50s, with Joseph Frank in the 40s, all Europeans. We've done collaborations recently with, with Via Granny, so for example, just to with, Nisha Crosland in the UK. So we do already have a lot of European DNI. I think the other part is, and I am European and I decorate the European way for myself, for example, and this is why it's such an interesting experience for myself. We sell raw material, it's like selling a diamond, and you can make an American bracelet out of it, or you make a European bracelet out of it, or a modern or a traditional one. So you can really take fabrics in certain ways. And one great experience is Laura Gonzalez, with who we have collaborated now twice. She is one of the big interior designers in France, and she has taken fabrics of ours and used it in her gallery all over, and interpreted it in such an incredibly European, confident and beautiful way. I think once I hopefully get my apartment published, you will also see that you can use Schumacher in a European way. So it has a lot of different faces. It really depends on how you use it. That's how I see it.
So when you say European way, that's a tough and vague designation. You gotta give me some more adjectives. What is the European way to Benni Frowein?
I think that I think that Americans are incredibly good at creating a room that envelops you, where you don't necessarily, I mean, obviously depends a lot on style and person, right? But where you have a room where you deliberately try not to have a protagonist in a room, but where you have a room that just works and is beautiful. Americans put a lot of effort and emphasis also on comfort. So Europeans, and now I put out my kitchen psychology, with like inheriting a lot, we don't have space to build up things. We need to work with what we have. Generations today make less than generations before. So you inherit things and you need to use them because you might need the drawer, the chest, or you might need the chair because you don't want to go and buy one. So you make things work and you shuffle things together. We have less space. I think dimensions are different. I think everything is a little smaller and a little tinier and a little, and I think we put much less effort or emphasis on comfort, which I hope we did more, but it's more like, oh, how does this look together? So,
Right.
and in this, all of these fabric pieces fitting together, I think we just go less for brave patterns and wallpaper and, match on match on match and pattern on pattern on pattern. And I think we're a little bit more, careful. But I think it all stems from this combination of things that don't really fit together and trying to make it work. I don't know. Does that make any sense with you?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. The pattern thing, I think, is as, can be universal. But, okay, this is the last impossible question before I let you go. What is Schumacher right now? What kind of company is Schumacher? If I meet you on the street and I know nothing of any of this, tell me what Schumacher is.
So Schumacher is a design company that happens to design textiles, wallpapers, and trims. And I say happens to design because primarily we believe that good design is important, and good design is something that comes out of what we do. We partner with interior designers to make them successful, and to bring our product to life. And we are a brand that we think is more at the pulse of the time and has more zeitgeist than anyone else in the industry, because we partner with incredibly talented creatives across all different industries, whether it be fashion or textile or kids brands or something like that. And I think that creates a mix that feels very alive. And last but not least, I think we're the company with the best inventory levels in the industry. So whatever you see and fall in love with.
What kind of vintage inventory do you guys like to carry?
So, I mean, I would think that 95% of our fabrics and wallpapers are in stock. So now you have, obviously, with the supply chain issues and so on, maybe it's at 85% now, you know, but I'm shocked by how much inventory we buy every week to, you know, to ensure that people, when they come to us, get the product they need, because we understand that's what people want and people need. And that's how, quite frankly, also commercially, we become more successful.
Totally. All right. Well, thank you so much, Benny.
Alexa, thank you for your challenging questions. I love this. Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's interesting because you're in such a different part of this universe. I'm fascinated, and I love the consulting brain. I think that's, you know, you offer perspectives that, you know, I don't have, and I like to hear them.
Thank you very much. And I hope you come to London soon. Let me know.
Me too, and congratulations on the new Parisian endeavor, and many, many more. I raise my iced coffee to you.
Thank you very much. Thank
Hey,
you. Take care.
Benny, thank you.
Thank you for tuning in. Bye-bye.
Bye.